than using an honest paycheck, a seasoned book and a set of wheels, a flash of your eye from across the party, a quiet life. Give me the news and an honest paycheck, a seasoned book and a set of wheels, a flash of your eye from across the party, a quiet life. An open door, an open door, an open
long hours, sore fingers, the melody lingers. First tune, beaming smile, feel the style. Calloused hands, stiff wrist, getting the gist. First riff, eyes wide, glowing pride.
Hello everyone and welcome. Thank you for joining us today on this Tuesday afternoon. My name is Wright. I am one of the facilitators and the back office team of StreetCones, and I had the pleasure of facilitating the West Dunbartonshire mixed group on their Road to Change workshops. So if you aren't familiar with StreetCones, let me tell you a little bit about us. We are a charity that was founded in 2014. We aim to use the arts to give people who have been marginalised for many different reasons a platform for their voices to be heard, and in turn we hope to better them and the wider community. So our Road to Change workshops are called Road to Change workshops, as we believe that the road to change is always under construction. So this is just one of many types of our workshops that we run at StreetCones. So if you're interested, please do check out our website. So I have just facilitated the Road to Change workshop with my co-facilitator Neil, and we were working with the West Dunbartonshire mixed group. At the end of this module, we did a performance of a script that we had been developing, and some of you may have tuned in last week for our female stream, which was incredible. If you haven't seen it, I recommend you to go and watch it on our Vimeo or YouTube channel. Today's conversation is going to be centred around veterans in the criminal justice system. Now, this theme came out of creative exercises that we did within the workshops, and participants felt extremely connected and passionate about this topic and wanted to devise a script around it. Now, they jumped headfirst into this extremely complex topic and theme, and today we would like to continue that conversation and continue it with our audience out there and a wider conversation. So we're really focusing on 3 specific topics today, one of which is our main topic, is veterans in the criminal justice system. The second is looking at the concept of community sentencing, payback orders, sometimes known as community payback or unpaid work, and the need for this, and the need for a society to feel that there has been retribution, punishment, rehabilitation, or repatriation. Sorry. And we're going to touch on just some of the things around StreetCones workshops. So we have just finished our 12-week program with the Western Partnership, and it's proven to be more reparative than punitive. And what you guys think about that? You know, what does the wider audience think? What kind of questions come up on those conversations? So we have a very full program with some big topics. So the program's going to work like this. We're going to watch a short film, which is the amalgamation of footage from workshops, debriefs, and the performance. So you'll get to see some of our performance. And then we will get on to meeting our panel. So while you are watching the stream, please do think of some questions and type them in to the comments on whatever platform you are watching on. So before we show the film, I would love to introduce Laura Smith, who is the Justice Service Manager of Western Bartonshire.
Thanks, Hannah. Hi, folks. I would just like to set a wee bit of the context around how Western Bartonshire Justice Services became involved with StreetCones. As you know, through COVID-19, nationally, unpaid work ground to a halt, and we were unable to carry out placement work and carry out any unpaid work across Scotland. It was really important to us, and it was also important to our service users that we continued the service and enabled them, to continue with their unpaid work hours. And how we could do that in the midst of a global pandemic was really, really challenging. We were very, very fortunate that colleagues from StreetCones came along and spoke to us about their online workshops and their creative workshops and how we could work collaboratively with StreetCones. We knew it was, as I described, a leap of faith before, but we felt it was something that was really important. It was something that had never been done before. And for our service users and staff, we felt committed to trialling this to see how things have gone, see how things went. It was really, really positive. The feedback from staff, service users, StreetCones colleagues has all been really positive, and I have found it quite a touching experience to be involved, albeit very remotely from myself. It's been a really revitalising experience, and having seen and spoken to the service users, participants that have been involved in the creative workshops and what they've gained from it has been actually really inspiring. So I hope you enjoy. This is a collage, if you like, of what's went on through the 12-week workshops, and be happy to answer any questions, as Hannah says, after we've watched the film.
What's been so tremendous about this whole 12-week workshop is, whether you've served in the army or not, we've all had some sort of kind of situation where we can relate to it. And because we have been so privileged to have had people who have served as part of the group, we get some of the most invaluable information research that we could ever have.
Well, I've decided to join the army. I'm going to go to the Army Careers Office and enlist.
Well done, son.
You're not raging?
Why would I be raging?
I don't know. Well, you never talked about when you were there. I only heard stuff from Mum, so I thought it was bad.
Well, you'll need to get off that wacky backy and start training.
This is my last one and I'll start. Suit your system in a month, so plenty of time.
Also in the film, also when he went to join the army, he got the help for his dad and things like that too, and he tried to toughen him up. But what I found was quite interesting was he said that, I got the impression that it wasn't going to be the same as his dad at the time, and we all say that.
I'll be honest with you, when you asked me earlier about our wee brothers, the truth is, since I've been back, I've been comparing you to the people I met in the army, the ones who became my family. It's weird because all my life you did look out for me, protected me, stopped me getting battered many times, carried me when I fell off my bike. That's because you're my big brother. In the army, I was like a big brother to so many. He looked to me, he looked out for them, he protected them, and I carried them when they were injured. I compared my cut leg to the losing of a leg. The stopping me getting battered, to stopping your troops getting shot when you're pinned in. I know I shouldn't have made the comparison. You've got to understand that I might have left the army, but the army hasn't left me. You're getting on with your life, with your family, mum and dad are too, but I don't know how to get on with mine. When you're on the front line, you might not see any action for days, but you're ready, soaking up the camaraderie, trying to distract yourself through the blistering heat. You can find yourself bored and then bang, full-scale fucking war zone. You've got to fuck off anything that you were doing right in and there. The reason you and I have drifted apart is my fault. It's because you can't understand what my experiences were. And I know you'll say that you'll want to try and understand, but I don't want the images that I've got in my head in yours, because you might see me differently. That's me protecting you. That's me being big brother. I can't speak to Dad about it because he might think I'm weak. And Mum, well, you know what she's like. She'll want to wrap me in cotton wool. You don't know this, but the first Guy Fawkes night I was back, Mum found me lying in the corner of my room in the fetal position, praying for the fireworks to stop, like a dog, trembling.
There's a reason why people join the army. Some go to try and escape that family, any issues back home.
Yeah.
Right, and then I've said in the film as well, but it's about a new family. So they've got a family back home, but then they've got their new family, and what Craig was saying about you're not my brother. You know what I mean? Because he seems his brother as the guys in green. You know what I mean? So it was two differentials, and then the way I see it is when you're in the army and you're wherever you are, and then you come back home and leave for 2 weeks, then all your mates who were there before you joined, they know wee Jimmy's coming back for 2 weeks, so they got on with it and they spend the time with Jimmy when he's back for 2 weeks, and then he's away again, and then they get back to their normal life, whatever that is. When wee Jimmy leaves the army and comes back to the same area and the same pals, then they can't do it for 2 weeks because they've got their own lives to deal with. They've got families, they've got jobs, all that. So it's not the same as that 2 week leave that wee Jimmy came back and thought it was all idyllic, and then he realises, actually, this isn't what I wanted. This isn't right for me. I don't fit in here. Everyone's moved on. You know what I mean? So then that then becomes issues who didn't feel part of it, and that's when they start sort of like self-medicating on drink or drugs or whatever it might be.
You've been an entirely different person since you came back.
When you are in the army, it's not like any life that you live in civilian. The rules are not the same. They don't apply. apply. There's different ways of, I don't know how to explain it. It's not like any life that you live in civilian. The rules are not the same. They don't apply. There's different ways of, I don't know how to explain it. It's not like any life that you live in civilian. The rules are not the same. They don't apply. There's different ways of, I don't know how to explain it. It's not like any life that you live in civilian. The rules are not the same. They don't apply. There's different ways of, I don't know how to explain it. It's not like any life that you live in civilian. The rules are not the same. They don't apply. There's different ways of, I don't know how to explain it. It's not like any life that you live in civilian. The rules are not the same. They don't apply. There's different ways of, I don't know how to explain it. It's not like any life that you live in civilian. The rules are not the same. They don't apply. There's different ways of, I don't know how to explain it. It's not like any life that you live in civilian. The rules are not the same. They don't apply. There's different you're trained to become a different type of human, essentially, because you have to survive. And this idea of, survival mode, and then you come back and you're like, okay, now snap out of it.
I did not serve, but seen firsthand devastating consequences that combat had on those who I held dear to me. So please accept I fully empathise with your struggle and can only apologise for lack of support that you have been denied. You have done your utmost to overcome your trauma by going into rehabilitation clinic where you have managed to come to terms somewhat with your issues with alcohol, but more importantly, the horrors of what you witnessed in battle. I therefore thank you for the duty to which you have served. Which brings me to the issue of which we are here today. I have read through your background report. I have taken on board the character references provided by your troop commander, the staff at the clinic, and most importantly, your family. You understandably lost your way for a period of time, and along with all those who care about you, I join them in saying that we are glad that you have found it once again. However, I'm obliged by law to take into consideration the crime that finds you standing before me. So, with all that being said, I hereby sentence you to 260 hours of community payback order. And I wish you all the best, Mr. Collins.
What we're trying to, well, not what we're trying to do, but what's happening is that we are removing this label of criminal that seems to happen with a CPO, which is like, you're a criminal, put on a high vis, this is your punishment, this is your retribution. And we're going, cool, so let's work together and let's make a company and let's do some things and let's create something together. And like, not once have we really gone, okay, so what was your order about? Like, tell us about why you're on a CPO, tell us about what crime you committed. It's very much like, okay, so if he did this, and we're removing the label of criminal and putting on creator. So we're just pulling that one off and we're going, okay, so now you're a creator. Yeah.
It's been, what, 12 odd weeks or whatever, and I don't know anything about MD like and what they've done, you know.
As social workers or as workers within justice services, the best thing we can offer our service users is the acknowledgement that they are not the sum total of their offending. There is so much more to every single one of us on this call, and it's important as staff working with service users, as I say, to acknowledge that.
Have a special words from all my troops. Somewhere I show them a script. They want to say thank you for touching something what most of the people for years don't want. You done an amazing job.
Thanks.
That is what every guy is saying. You done something which we was fought for many years. Now maybe people will have a different point of view on us, where you don't know if the next guy who you see on the street, he has been or seen this what we was there, he was up there. If you know someone who was in the army, then maybe you be a thing differently a bit of the person rather, he's just like an example.
Again, just thank you everybody. Thanks to StreetCones, the facilitators, the people that came along tonight to watch the performance, but more importantly to the performers. You were immense.
Thanks, Hannah, and thanks, Laura. Hope the film was enjoyable, folks. That was a showcase film that was put together at the end of the 12-week module. which was completed by Western Bartonshire Unpaid Work. And it was a fabulous experience for my colleagues on the delivery team. Lots of amazing feedback from our facilitators. The evaluation that was completed was very, very positive. We're not naive enough to say that everybody who comes through these workshops is not going to reoffend, but we are certainly confident that a percentage of the participants who are coming through these workshops are going to be in a better position to hopefully make more positive choices in the future. So in terms of the format for today, you've seen the film. We've had an intro from the head of service for Western Bartonshire Justice, and now what I will do is I will introduce your panel. And the panel is, so the first we have Laura, who you've already heard from. Laura Smith, Justice Service Manager, Western Bartonshire. Laura, I mean, I know you've already, kind of did the introduction. Is there anything else you would like to add to that?
Yeah, I just think it's important to kind of reiterate what everybody has got from this, Mark. There's always the question arose last time round about the punitive reparation, the element of community payback orders, and I suppose for me it's really important. A community payback order is more than a sentence that's handed down from the court. It's an opportunity for the service user to link in with support services. It's an opportunity to build on their skills that they have, find new skills that they don't know they have, and the workshops enabled all that to happen. One of the things that is important from Justice Services is to keep that going, because it's that piece around unpaid work being manual, being out, and it is absolutely, the communities of Western Bartonshire have really benefited from that type of work that goes on, and it will continue. We will continue to work with our colleagues in the local communities to carry that out. But it's also, creative arts is a different stream, it's a different skill, and I think it's really important to continue to tap into that, because what we've found is our service users gaining confidence, as I say, gaining skills that they didn't know they had, but more importantly, wanting to pay it forward, wanting to take that experience and pay it forward to the local communities. So the elements of a CPO, of reparation, rehabilitation, is all incorporated within that. The punitive part of that is the time, and I know Iain's been out at work today, been back, been doing a bit more, and then joined us this afternoon. So there is there's a time element to that, and 12 weeks of workshops in addition to what else has went on, it adds up the hours. So I just felt it was important from a Justice Services point of view to recognise why we wanted to do it, but also why we want to continue taking it forward as well, and not just with unpaid work. We have lots of other service users involved with us for a variety of different reasons, and I think it's really important to widen it out to across our whole cohort. So that's it from me. Thank you.
Excellent. And the next guest we have on the panel is Yvonne Mccord, who is the activities coordinator with the Erskine charity. Hi, Evonne.
Hi, Mark. Hiya. Yeah, I work for the Erskine Reed McEwen Activity Centre. So we've been operational for about 3.5 years now. A need was seen for community-based activities, meaningful activities for veterans living in the community. So we opened with about 15-20 members. We now have about 200 members, and we, even through COVID, we have still continued. We basically moved from a face-to-face service onto a virtual service. So Zoom has been very, very useful for us. I think this is probably why it makes it a bit easier for me on here, because I've been used to it for the last year, providing that service. So, I mean, we're open to any veteran who, as long as you signed that bit of paper and you served, you can attend AirMac. We have a lot of activities. We have from woodwork to bushcraft to art to creative writing, archery, lots and lots of opportunities. From a personal level, my background is in health, support work and nursing care. And also, from a veteran point of view, I also served in the Royal Engineers, so it's a very personal thing for me.
Good.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for joining us today, Evonne. Next on the panel, we have Scott Muir, who is the team leader with the Sacro Veteran Mentoring Service. Hi, Scott.
Hi, Mark. My background is I joined the Army straight from school, age 16, done 16 years and made the decision to get out. I struggled with my transition from the military and I bounced in and out of jobs, trying to find my place in life, and eventually I found it. And I now lead the team in Sacro's Veterans Mentoring Service. We support veterans who are currently in or at risk of becoming in the criminal justice system. And we've got a team of 9 mentors that cover the whole of Scotland. We deal with veterans who are working and living in the community or those who are currently in the prison estates. And our role is to try and look at the issues that are putting them in touch with criminal justice and finding the right help and support to get them to support the issues that they're actually getting to move them on to a better life.
Thanks, Scott. And last but not least, the final panel member is Iain, who was one of the participants over the 12-week unpaid workshops, who is a veteran, who has kindly volunteered to join us today on the panel. So first of all, I mean, from my point of view, Iain, thank you for agreeing to do this. What I would say is, when it comes to, I mean, this is a wee deviation from the work that StreetCones does in the workshops, because in the workshops we operate something that we call the privileged environment, where our participants are encouraged to log in using first names only, no surnames. We, or the facilitators, create fictional characters and fictional story worlds using the collective group lived experience of the group. But as part of that process, it's quite a subtle distinction, but we encourage participants not to reveal any personal details about themselves. So when it comes to your participation today, Iain, obviously, you can share as much or as little as you want in terms of your personal backstory, which is not something that you would normally do in the workshops. But obviously, this is not a workshop, so thanks for agreeing to be here. Would you like to maybe just say something about, anything at all, the workshops, or anything you want to say by way of an introduction to yourself?
Yeah, Mark. So my name's Iain, as you know. I joined the military late 2011, passed out 2012, and went around the world, met a lot of good friends that I call family now, and it was I got promoted to Lance Corporal, and then I went through a bad stage in my life where I lost somebody in the military that made me turn to alcohol, see what this is about. And I went through a bad transition when I left in mid 2018, and then I found myself getting worse and worse, with alcohol, not knowing nowhere to turn, not who to speak to. You know what I mean? Like, sort of slipped through the cracks, and then I ended up in a CPO and obviously in the criminal justice system. And now that I am on, obviously, the StreetCones, and that I'm here sitting here now willing to answer any questions if you want to know about me, and I'll happily help and speak away.
Thanks, Iain. So that's the panel, folks. And in terms of the format for today, the idea is, from our point of view, there's probably, first of all, we would encourage everybody to submit any questions via whichever platform you're watching on, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, Twitter, LinkedIn. So submit your questions. Now, when it comes to our thinking, when we kind of got together as a group to talk about how today was going to look, I think from our point of view, we anticipated that the 3 areas that we would likely be talking about would be, number 1, the veteran specific areas, which is clearly the theme of today. And from our point of view, I suppose we were thinking that we would probably try and focus on that area. And then the second area is, in terms of obviously Laura's area of expertise, community payback orders, unpaid work, community sentences, those kind of general conversations. And then from my point of view, the actual workshops themselves and the work that StreetCones do. So I suppose those are the 3 areas that we anticipate we'll be talking about. And I can see actually that I've got a question from Sarah Wright on YouTube, and she's asking, what was it like to work on a script that was centered around such a difficult issue? So I suppose, Iain,
Yes.
I suppose you would be best placed to talk about that. You know what might be interesting, actually? I mean, I wasn't one of the facilitators on your workshop, but I know from speaking to Hannah and the other facilitators that, as with all of our workshops, they tend to start out with a blank page and not a pre-identified theme. It may be quite interesting if you talk a little bit about how did you get onto this, because my understanding is it was a complete coincidence that there was a majority of participants in the workshop who were actually veterans.
Yes. So when I first got put onto StreetCones, I joined I think I was like 4 or 5 weeks into it. So the script was already started from the people that was already on, and it was just, I can relate to it. It was because I went through. That script was, it was like me writing that script myself, like it was me. But I didn't go through rehab. You know what I mean? I slipped through the cracks with the alcohol, and I knew I was getting in trouble. Like what the script is about: alcohol, slipping through the cracks, getting in trouble, going to rehab. But I didn't go to rehab. But I had the help I had from my family, the way they got, and it was uncanny how it was written. I don't know how I'd say.
Yeah.
I can't think of why it was written that way. How everybody thought on the same thing. I don't know, because I missed the first start of it. I missed the first 4 or 5 weeks of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, my understanding, just from so I'm the unpaid work account manager, so I get visibility of the kind of ongoing evaluations and also the script when it gets to the draft stage prior to the end of module performance. So actually, just to explain for the internet, when it comes to these 12-week modules, the 12-week modules, so there's usually 2 workshops per week. The time spent in these workshops goes towards the participants' unpaid work hours. At the end of the 12-week module, there is a performance. And the only difference between that performance and an in-person performance, obviously, is that we use technology. So we use Teams. So we have Iain and his fellow participants, or the ones who are brave enough to volunteer, performing the script for what's usually a small kind of a small audience of case managers, social workers, senior management, elected officials, justice partners like sheriffs, that type of thing. But it tends to be a small professional focused audience. So the idea of, or one of the ideas of these external events, these streams that we run, is to give Iain and his fellow participants the opportunity to invite friends and family online. And Western Bartonshire get the opportunity to invite the local community and the wider community, and to show the ways in which they are being innovative and forward thinking when it comes to the delivery of community sentences. Yeah, so it was an interesting thing for me, the fact that, as with all the workshops, started off with a blank page, and then going through the creative process, it was discovered that the majority of the participants were veterans, and then tapping into their group lived experience, despite the fact nobody's sharing any personal details, as part of the privileged environment. And then we ended up with a fabulous piece of theatre, which obviously the internet has just seen a wee showcase film of. I've got another question here, which probably I would direct to Scott. We've got Ryan Lester on Twitter asking, what do you think the biggest thing that causes veterans to actually enter the criminal justice system is?
From my experience, I think it is that transitional issues, because when you join the military, you're taken away from your civilian life, you put into that sort of military life, and then when you leave the military, it's very difficult to transition back to become a civilian again. And what I say to people is, what you can get away with in a bar or behind the wire in any camp anywhere in the world, you can't get away with in the high street. And that's what the difference is. And it's about people, a lot of veterans don't understand how to live civilian lives. A lot of them don't know how to pay bills. They don't know how to budget for shopping, things like that. And it's about that, they don't know how to think like a civilian. And that's one of the biggest issues. I'm not saying that people don't commit crimes for whatever different reasons, but from my experience of work with veterans is that transition, and it's about trying to educate them on what it's like to live a civilian life.
Mm-hmm. Evonne, I suppose, I mean, obviously you're ex-forces, and the Erskine charity has an international reputation for the work that you're doing there. So I suppose the same question directed at yourself.
I think it's just reiterating what Scott said as well. It's an entirely different culture, and it is a really, really difficult transition to come from a military life into a civilian life. It's a story that's kind of told over and over to myself and my colleagues, where the hardest thing was going from this sort of semi, and this is a funny way to describe it, but I think hopefully that Iain and Scott would agree, a sort of semi-protected environment of being in the military, where you don't really need to make many decisions because your decisions are made for you. Then you're plonked out into civilian life, and it's like, right, okay, what do you do? And it can be really, really difficult. I mean, and things like being able to look for money, benefits, paying rent, all of these different things, it can be quite daunting, and you can see how easily it is to go down a path, particularly if you've had an experience that Iain had mentioned, where it's a very, very easy path to go down. It's a bit easy to go down that way, where especially if alcohol, etc. is involved, it's very, very difficult. It's very, very easy, and it's difficult to get out of it.
Iain, I suppose, like, it might be kind of oversimplifying things. It's obviously a very complicated area, but when you think back to your journey,
yes,
through the military, and coming out, is there anything that could have been done differently by way of giving you access to something that you didn't have access to that might have changed things?
A lot of things, really, but it was the way I got handled. As was previously talked about before, that was my company that didn't handle me correct. That was my battalion. You know what I mean? It wasn't that. That's not the whole of the army. That was just the way I got treated from my company, from my sergeant majors, from my OC, from my COs. You know what I mean? From all the way up to my chain of command. But I had nobody to. I didn't really know. It's not that I didn't know who to talk to. It's like I couldn't feel that I could talk to them, because what I was going through at the time with the alcohol, I just got shoved aside. And I can remember just like being in my Z type accommodation, just sat there, and I'd drink away and all that. And then I'd send see the jocks. I was a lance corporal at the time, and that was obviously you don't operate like that when you're a lance corporal or corporal. You know what I mean? You're a leader of men. And I sat in my room and I hid myself away, and then I just drank, and I would send the jocks to the NAFI to bring me alcohol back and that, and then nobody would come and check on me. My chain of command, they didn't want to know me, and I got left in my room for a full week while everybody was at work parading and all that, and I just sat and got drunk. And then it got to a point where my sergeant major came to my room. I won't mention his name because I wouldn't tarnish his career. And he had a cup, and it said, I can't really swear online, you know what I mean, but it was directed towards me. And then I can remember looking at that thinking, that's the first word you've said to me through that cup. You've not even spoke to me. And I had to go see the padre. And when I went to go see the padre, I told him everything that was going on, this and that. And then he put me through a certain chain of command. It wasn't even my company, it was a different company. And then he told me, right, go through this, do that. But when I got out, I phoned these places up. I sent emails away. I can remember as well phoning one of them up, and he said to me, he goes, "Oh, right, I've got another call, I have to go." And I'm like, that's supposed to be a veteran support group, and I phoned you up asking for help, and I've been patched away again. That's taken that one bad egg from all the good things that happens, and I don't know. I've just never had a good experience, and I still wouldn't know who to speak to, even to this day. Even though that I'm fresh and I'm better, now I'm a chef, that my life's on track, I still wouldn't know who to talk to. Even though I don't need that help anymore, I wouldn't know.
I suppose, as with all of these things, in my mind, I mean, obviously I've got I don't have any experience. I'm not a veteran, so I don't have any experience of the unique challenges that are faced by the men and women who obviously serve us so bravely. And I know obviously we're all grateful to them, and I've got friends and family members who are in the military or have been in the military. That said, there's part of me, I suppose, playing devil's advocate. Scott, would I be right in saying that there's been a lot of improvements made in terms of the handling of that transitional period?
Yeah, I think the Ministry of Defence are doing a lot more to support those who are transitioning, who made the decision to leave the military, whether it's Army, Navy or Air Force. When I get out 2004, to me there wasn't a lot. It was about finding a job and buying a house. There wasn't anything about actually becoming a civilian. So they're doing a lot more now. They've got Defence Transition Service who support veterans, support those serving whilst they're doing that transition to civilian life, and they'll support them out of once in the community as well. So I think the military are going that way. So from the day you join, they're preparing you to leave. So one day you'll never stay in the military for your whole life. So part of their job is to actually prepare you for that day you leave, so you can make a positive contribution to society. But I think it has got a long way to go, and depending on what branch of the military you're in, they're better than others. So, but they are going in the right direction. But I think they've still got quite a bit to go before they get it right.
You could do 100 good things, and it's that one bad thing you get remembered for, if that makes sense. And that's what it's always been. See, it doesn't matter how good you are. There's that one bad thing you get remembered for.
Iain, about when you phoned up and the guy said, "Oh, there's not a call coming in."
Aye.
With veterans, if they're very poor at actually asking for help, but once they've built up the courage and they've put their hand up and says, "I need some help," and whatever they need, when they've picked up that phone and they've phoned somebody, the worst thing you can do is actually just fob them off. because they'll then that lack of sort of
No, it
engagement.
wasn't. No, it wasn't me. It was on the other end of the phone. I was. Oh, yeah.
So that's what I meant. You phoned up and they fobbed you off.
Yeah.
That's what I mean, but that's the worst thing. Anybody who's supporting veterans, that's the worst thing you can do. Is if someone's built up the courage to actually pick up the phone and ask for help, and you just fob them off, then that's it. Because they've had to fight their own personal battles to make that phone call, and straight away, as you said, you still don't know where to go for help.
Aye.
Even if you need it. But there's so much help out there for veterans, for the veterans community. Yeah. But if you've had a bad experience of one agency, then unfortunately that could possibly tarnish the rest of them as well.
I suppose the other situation is you can have, the MOD could have literally all the help in the world, and they could invest, which obviously they won't because they don't have the resources. But if they were investing millions and millions into making sure that all the help in the world was available to our armed services personnel, if you don't ask for help, it's useless. So I suppose there is an element of that also. Evonne, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Sometimes you can be in a position where somebody may not ask you for help, but you know they need help, and it's about the right way of approaching them, and it's about the right way of talking to them. And you can find out a lot by just giving somebody some time, giving you their time and chatting, and it then that you can introduce, this is what's available. There's lots and lots of good services out there, like the Armed Service Advice Project, that's part of the Citizens Advice Bureau. There's organisations like Scots, and there's loads and loads out there, and it's maybe just about getting the right conversation going with somebody, and just listening is huge. And I think that what Iain was saying there, it's like you phoned up and all you wanted was somebody to listen to you and be able to help you, and that's kind of giving you a bad taste in your mouth about things, and that's really unfortunate. I'm looking over at the moment where I am in the Erskine estate, that we have got, we've just opened some transitional flats for people that are leaving the military and for people that have maybe left the military a few years ago, and it's basically to support folk into work and into further housing, etc. So there's new things happening out there. I can see it in front of me, so there is a lot of good things out there.
And I'll make sure before we finish today to come back to making sure that anybody who is watching, listening, can get access to the to the support that's available via Sacro and Erskine, and I'll make sure that all of these platforms have links to both Evonne and Scott's organisations, so that anybody who anybody out there who feels like they need that support is able to reach out for it. Laura, I apologise. I've been neglecting you for a few minutes.
Not at all.
But I mean, I've got a question here actually that might be up your street, Emma. Emma Simpson on Twitter is asking, what does West Dunbartonshire have in place? Is there any specific policies in place for veterans?
There is no specific policy that I'm aware of other than one of support, and we are the conduit, I suppose, and it's as important for us as a justice service to know what's out there, to refer through to Evonne and Scott and the Armed Services Advice Bureau, so that we are getting better at understanding the needs of our veterans that are on CPO. And if we understand the needs of the service user better, and we also have that knowledge base of resources, then we're the conduit for moving through and getting referrals made. I think it's important to recognise as well the journey that somebody comes on, whether whether you're transitioning from the army or whether you're in a cycle of addiction, there is that process that individuals have to go through. And again, I would stress the importance that when somebody's asking for help, that thought process has taken its time to get to the point where somebody's looking for that help, and there's that window of opportunity to support somebody with it. I think as a service and as a service manager, I need to keep at the forefront what's out there, what's available, to keep staff knowledge base upgraded. And it's important, these links that we're creating today with Iain, Scott and Evonne needs to continue. So, but Emma's question, no, there's not a policy. There should be, and that's one of the things that certainly as a justice service we will look at. What is our policy when we have veterans subject to a CPO, and how we best can support them while they're on that.
Question from Gordon Thompson on Vimeo: are all persons' unpaid work hours attributed to the time they spend with StreetCones? So I suppose that no,
it's a part of it. Sorry to cut you off there, Mark. No, it's a part of it. There will be other placements or work that will be carried out in terms of depending on how many hours the person's subject to, but it won't be all of it. There will be other placements, as I say, that will be undertaken to finish their hours, if you like.
I'll tell you what, see, for future streams, we'll need to get our head around the technology and see if there's a way for us to ask the internet questions. Because, you know, myself and Laura have had conversations, you know, historically relating to, so me, for example, if I take off my StreetCones hat, like if I'm a member of the public, if I'm a taxpayer, if you give me the choice between, offenders picking up litter or painting fences or this type of work, I think sometimes there can be a conception that this type of work is soft or is easier than the more traditional manual type work that's associated with community sentences. But from my point of view, I know for a fact, because I've delivered some of these workshops, and I see the content of every workshop, and StreetCones are currently delivering these to 12, 13 local authorities. And I know for a fact that although the privileged environment is constructed in such a way that participants are using the collective lived experience of the group and not their personal details, there's no avoiding the fact that as part of the process of building fictional characters and fictional story worlds, they are holding a mirror up to themselves. And I know for a fact from speaking to participants of these workshops that some of them find this type of work more difficult, and the manual type work that some people out there seem to be more enthusiastic about when it comes to community sentences. From my point of view, as a taxpayer taking my StreetCones hat off, I would rather this type of work was being done. Where are you on that, Laura? I mean, what's your sense of, like, in Western Bartonshire, do you get the opportunity to listen to the local community in terms of how they feel about the different types of unpaid work and community sentences?
Yeah, I think this morning we had a request from one of our local housing associations to help with a community garden, and we are absolutely totally in agreement with that. We work we work with colleagues in green space within Western Bartonshire. There's also third sector colleagues that we're looking at further work at Now Talk that's going to be carried out in the future. We're very much, that's a co-production with unpaid work that's happening shortly. So there is a need for skills, for joinery, for carpentry, for litter picking, for painting and decorating, for whatever's out there. and there's also the need to upskill for confidence, for what Iain and his colleagues have got out of participating in this, and certainly from those that I've spoke to previously, is the fact that it's built their confidence and self-esteem to know that their experiences are helping help themselves, but they're also going to help others to reintegrate easier into the community. Iain potentially could be looking at somebody else in Dumbarton or Clydebank, wherever in Western Bartonshire, supporting somebody to make that transition slightly easier. So for me, I believe there is a place for everything. Whether your skill is painting and decorating, whether it's creating and being part of a workshop and looking at how to support other people, whether it's female in criminal justice, as we've already looked at earlier, or whether it's the veterans within the criminal justice system. I mentioned before, Mark, the punitive part of it is the hours. We have got Laura Smith having 300 hours of unpaid work to participate. To complete, whether that's participating in a workshop or whether that's participating in a placement, looking at supporting local churches, local housing associations. It's all relevant to the local community, because what you're giving back is either a community garden or you're giving back Laura Smith with increased confidence and with better skills to the local community. So for me, it's a win-win. I hope that answers your question.
That was something I found out. I mean, I've been doing this type of work. I've been doing the StreetCones. It's not my, it's not my day job, but the StreetCones type work, like all the StreetCones delivery team members, we're all kind of actors, writers, directors. We all come from the creative sector, and we do this work because we're very passionate about getting the opportunity to use the arts to touch people in a positive way and affect positive change. So I'm learning all the time as I'm going through this work, and you just touched on something there that I did not know, which is the time element. Because before I got into this type of work, I thought that spending time in prison and being given community sentences and picking litter, etc., I thought it was a punishment. But I've since discovered that from a legislation perspective, from a in terms of what the authorities are obligated to deliver on our behalf as citizens is not punishment. In that respect, it's the time. So if you're taking, if you're taking 300 hours off someone, in terms of them being able to do something else with their time, which they are obviously not able to do during that 300 hours, that in itself, from a community sentence perspective, is sufficient punishment in the eyes of the authorities.
Yeah, and there's also not written in legislation that it has to be litter picking or painting and decorating or joinery. We've done a lot of good work within the community down at the Saltings in Western Bartonshire. We've it's a nature reserve that we have assisted down there. The local churches were very it's very important to us that we continue with that, and a lot of the guys, as I say, whether it's community work or creative workshops, it's what they get from it that's important, but what the community gets from it as well. So yeah,
I apologise if I seem distracted. I'm trying to Hannah, my colleague in the back office, is passing me moderated questions via the different platforms, and I'm actually trying to spread them between those three themes that we previously identified: veteran specific in the criminal justice system, the CPOs, unpaid work, and also the work that StreetCones do. So I have a question from a kind of veteran themed question from Lucy Creed on Twitter. She says that she knows that there is a drinking culture in the armed forces. So I suppose that this question, in the first instance, will direct to yourself, Iain. Do you think that the drinking culture that exists in the armed forces contributes to the the difficulties and challenges that veterans find themselves in, and is there anything can be done around that?
I don't think there's anything that can be done around that per se, because that's up to the individual themselves to put the can to the mouth to drink the alcohol. It's the culture is, it's all one. We all have a good laugh, good time. The army, the navy, whatever, they're good drinkers. That's what it is. It's a big bond. You drink, but not for the person themselves putting the can to the mouth to make themselves drink it. I don't think there's anything you can do about that. It's up to the individual, I'd say. Not to do with the culture. It's the individual.
I suppose, see when it comes to professions that have to deal with things that most of us will never see in our lifetime. So police, fire, ambulance, armed forces, just part of their job is they have to deal with horrific situations that the rest of us don't have to worry about. And I suppose for some of them, a kind of coping mechanism, unfortunately, is the drinking side of things. But then again, I suppose, I mean, I don't want it to sound like I'm downplaying the seriousness of that, but I suppose there are other occupations, and it's a completely different thing, but there are other occupations. In fact, some people might argue most occupations, there's an element of stress attached to jobs, and some people deal with it in different ways. I mean, Scott, when it comes to Lucy's question there relating to the drinking culture in the armed forces, have you got any thoughts on that?
The armed forces is a work hard, play hard sort of environment, because you are all together in that base, in that same group. There's a lot of peer pressure to go out and drink, and there's a lot of opportunities for it, especially during my time. There's a lot of alcohol, especially if you're in Germany, where beer is very cheap and alcohol is very cheap. There's a lot of pressure to get involved in that culture, and it's sometimes difficult to get away from that once you're not in that environment anymore. I think the military are getting better at it, but even from my own personal point of view, I wouldn't say I was a big drinker, but I like to drink. And when I first got out of the army, and my wife had then moved back to hometown, wife had her own civilian pals, things like that, or non-army pals. And before we go for a night out, she'd say to me, right, remember, don't upset him tonight. And I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, you don't mean to do it. But once you've got a few beers in you, your squaddy head comes on and you start thinking things are funny. But civvies don't understand it. I say, just don't try not to upset him. And it took me a while to understand that, until I realised that actually when I had a few beers, I wasn't back in that military environment. I was with a normal civvy environment, and I couldn't act the same way. And it took me quite a bit of time to get that through to me that was the case. And I keep saying to her about it, but it is a big drinking culture, and in my job, quite a high percentage of people that we work with have committed a crime whilst under influence of either drugs or alcohol. And that's one of the first things we do, is we try and get the help and support for that, because that then negates one of the issues that puts them in touch with criminal justice. So if they've committed offences whilst under influence of alcohol, if they no longer drink alcohol, then that's straight away, that's helping them to stop reoffending.
Yvonne, have you got anything you want to add to that?
It's very similar to what Scott's saying. I think sometimes it can be a bit of a vicious circle. It is the work hard, play hard. You have a drink, you have a few beers. You've been working hard all day, or whatever it is you do. You go to the junior ranks club, and you're going to have a few beers, and you're going to have a laugh. And it does, because it's part of the culture. It's part of the way of unwinding. It's when the alcohol becomes a way of like kind of helping you deal with things, or helping you forget. That's where, I mean, it's a kind of vicious circle that's happening. I mean, I pocket myself into a different, like, kind of, I have got people that I served with that are friends, and I've got my civilian friends, I've got my musical theatre friends that I've got, and my sort of way of enjoying myself is different with all of them. And I have to say, see, the guys that I've served with, or my Royal Engineers friends, that's an entirely different way. That is where the banter comes out, and it's like you turn into a bit of a different person, and it's great. I would say it's great fun. But yeah, I would say it can be a vicious cycle. If you're using alcohol as a way to maybe mask the way that you're feeling or bad things that have happened, that's where it can be an issue.
Question for Laura. So interestingly, we had two groups going through Western Bartonshire, and one group was a female group and the other group was a mixed gender group. So the mixed gender group is the one that has culminated in this event, because the majority of the participants were veterans. The female group, we ran an identical event to this one last week, and the theme was females in the criminal justice system and the unique challenges that are faced by by women who are either in or at risk of entering the system. Now, one of the questions that came up was, should there be, so there's drug courts. Now, this is Laura's area of expertise, but Scotland has drug courts. A question last week was, should Scotland have female-specific courts? Question from Lisa Ness on YouTube. Do you think there should be veteran-specific courts, Laura?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think anything that addresses the specific needs of the individual is good. I think if we can get across to sentencers the needs and what's brought the person in front of them today helps. We do have background reports, which, as you know, is an aid to sentencing. So the more we can do to inform our sentencers, the sheriffs, etc., then the disposal would marry with the needs of the service user, if that makes sense. So, for example, there's not just CPOs, there's deferred sentences, there's structured deferred sentences, there's DTTOs, as you say. So I think it's always a good idea to have it as individualised as possible. Whether it would take place in my career time, I'm less sure.
I'm not a great fan of the veteran court idea. They do have veterans courts within the States in certain areas, but I don't think we have got enough. We've not got the same number of veterans as they have in the States. I think a deferred sentence, if someone's going through a court system and they're identified as a veteran and their offending history may be due to their military service for either PTSD, whatever it might be, then I think that should be looked at, and potential to go into other alternative to sort of go to prison or whatever it might be, so they can then get help and support with that, the military-related systems. But part of the problem is the identity, because the big identity issue with veterans that they don't actually see themselves as veterans, because veterans are World War II, I mean, storming the beaches, all that sort of thing. That is what people automatically think is veterans. But a veteran is somebody that served in the armed forces for one day. And a lot of the younger veterans these days have done 3-4 tours of Afghanistan or Iraq. So they've seen a lot of trauma and a lot of conflict, but they still probably don't see themselves as veterans. So to get somebody to hold their hand up and actually say, yeah, I've served and I'm a veteran, it's quite difficult. And that's something you'd have to look at through the court system if you're going to do a deferred sentence or a other programme, is you have to figure out how you identify who is a veteran and who isn't, and whether their offending behaviour is related to the military service or whether it's not.
Yeah. I've got a message. This isn't it's not really a question, it's more Tam Gillen on Twitter. Well done, Iain, for coming on here. I'm almost 1 year sober, still struggling to get access to my kids. Spent over 10 years in the military and I had no support. So, I mean, there isn't really a question there, but Scott, Yvonne, Iain, anything you want to say to Tam?
A year sober, man, that's brilliant. You know, see, you hear cases where people don't recover, and it's a sad thing. And now he's a year sober. There's my hand, there's my heart. A lot of respect for that. He's done a lot of things a lot of people couldn't do, and I've got a lot of respect for that. I really have. And thank you for your service as well, sir. 10 year, brilliant.
Definitely, just what Iain was saying. Just what Iain was saying. But well done, a year sober. That's brilliant, and just keep on. But you're dealing with your kids, you know. Hopefully things will all work out that way, and wish you all the best with that. And you know, as I say, 10 years serving. You know, good on you, mate.
So to reiterate what everybody else said, it's fantastic. You've obviously your service and the fact that you've been a year sober. Also, you say you're fighting to try and get access to your kids, but there is help and support out there through the Veterans Support Services. For example, Armed Services Advice Project, who are part of Citizens Advice Scotland. There's somebody I would automatically think of who could probably help you with that legal aspect. And they only support veterans anyway. So we can certainly get the contact details for them.
Excellent. Question for Laura from Liam Ruffle on Twitter. Have you seen in Western Bartonshire a large intake of veterans in the justice system? And what support do you provide?
The first part, I couldn't say if there's been an increase or an influx in recent times, but that's certainly something I would look into. It's not uncommon, is how I would answer that question, to have veterans on CPOs and involved in the justice system. How we support any service user is indicative of what needs and how best we can support them. So again, it comes back to around that individual need. If it's a veteran that's on a CPO, then we would look to refer them through to Evonne, Scott, any other services that's around there for additional support. We also have our addiction service, mental health support, that kind of thing. So it would be the case of somebody coming on to a CPO, we would look at their background and any support needs or any risk assessment type thing. Support assessment would be carried out, and we would refer through to the appropriate services.
Interesting question from, by the way, I apologise because, well, first of all, thank you everybody for sending through such fabulous and insightful questions and making my job a lot easier, but there are a lot of them. So I apologise for my distraction trying to work my way through them. Interesting one from Anne Peebles on Vimeo. Iain, what do you feel was the most effective support that you received during your community payback order from your case manager or social worker? By effective, I mean, what was most beneficial to you in your journey?
The most beneficial, I would say, Jordan. He's my support worker, and it's mostly I could phone him, I could contact him anytime, and he'd be there. If I ever felt down, if I ever needed, I think I was going to do something silly, if I ever needed somebody to talk to, he was like, I said to me, just phone me, I'll be there. And that's the kind of support that I got. And that's what's helped me. You know what I mean? Through Stay Straight, knowing that I've got the support of my support workers and social workers. That's what's kept me straight. I know I can phone them, and that's what I love about that. That's I love that.
And also, StreetCones.
Yes, we everything.
Yeah. I was going to put 20 quid in the post for you there if you'd said StreetCones first, but that's okay.
I think, Mark, sorry to interrupt you there. I think it's important that the support, I think it's lovely, it's great that the staff are recognised for the job they do. It's also important as a service to recognise that somebody leaving a CPO, there's onward supports where signpost them, because as you know, it's time limited with us, and that's one of the things that we really want to pick up on is there supports out there that are still required. So when Iain or any other service users finishing up with us, we've identified follow-through support for them.
Yeah, you know what? The support thing's interesting from our point of view as well, because our facilitators who deliver these workshops are all experienced facilitators, but they go through specific training because we are creative professionals. We are not mental health professionals, but we are always on the lookout for people who are struggling in some way. And sometimes in these workshops, because of the closeness and the relationship that's developed between the facilitators and the participants, it's actually fairly frequent that a facilitator will identify somebody who they think might be struggling, and then internally we've got a process that we go through with Laura and Ruth Price and the case managers and social workers, just to make sure that people have that support if they if they need it, basically. And that actually leads to another question here from Chris Small on Twitter, saying, cracking work, excellent film. What happens next for the script and also for the group? Now, obviously from StreetCones' point of view, we are working with 12, 13 local authorities. We would like to be working with 32 local authorities. So from our point of view, we want to be doing this work all over Scotland. But, obviously the reality of the situation is when you have to deal with each individual local authority, that's a complicated business. But when it comes to, these 12-week modules, 2 sessions per week, 12 weeks, then a debrief, then the performance at the end of the 12 weeks, and then there's at least one debrief session afterwards, which is an opportunity for the participants to kind of reflect on what's going on over that 12-week period. The facilitators can signpost any additional support that's required. We have this external event, and I know that all of the other participants will be online supporting Iain, and a lot of them were excited to invite family and friends to get a wee snapshot of the work that they helped to contribute to. In terms of moving forward, I suppose when it comes to the work that we're doing with West Dunbartonshire and each local authority, from Laura's point of view and Ruth Price, the mental health and well-being of all the participants is paramount. It's always the first thing at the start of the conversation. How can we look after people, and how can we make sure they're well supported? Anything else you would say to that, Laura?
No, absolutely no. And I think the 2 streams, if you like, the 2 workshops, cohorts that have come through that, the communication has been excellent. It's been really, really helpful. And the facilitators picking up on points that we were able to then support the guys and the women through. But as I mentioned there as well, it's where do we go after this? Because at the end of the day, we all due respect, we don't want folk on CPOs. We want to do ourselves a job and have folk not reoffending. So it's where else do we go? And that's where support and colleagues like Scott and Evonne come into play, that we need to be looking to our third sector colleagues to continue that support for our service users.
Question from Sam Roberts on Twitter. I suppose we kind of covered it previously. What do you think that we as a society can do to help support those leaving the armed forces? What needs to be put in place that is not currently in place? Scott, have you got any ideas?
I think there's a lot of work been done within that link between the armed forces community and civilian communities. There's a thing called Armed Forces Covenant, which is out in 2012, which is sort of like the pledge between the government, society and armed forces. And for example, all 32 local authorities are signed up to the Armed Forces Covenant, and they're saying what they pledge and what they would do to support the Armed Forces community in their local area. And that could be to giving sort of like extra points for housing. If you go to a local authority housing area, if you meet the minimum criteria for a job, you get a guaranteed interview scheme. So their links are already there, and due to the Armed Forces Covenant, there's hundreds of companies that have signed up for the Armed Forces Covenant as well. For example, there's a major UK supermarket chain who have signed up to it, and they will support the Armed Forces community. They will support veterans. They will support reservists. So if a reservist has been away for operations for 6 months, they will keep their job open, so they don't have to lose their job to go and deploy. So there is a lot of work to be done. I think when you have Armed Forces Day every year in June, that is a big event where it's linked in with the military and obviously the civilian communities, and they're very important. But I think it's just about getting the military back out there and getting them more visible within local areas, local communities. And that's one of the things about the last year. The military have been very, very visual in testing centres and vaccination centres and setting up the sort of hospitals and things like that. So I think it will improve and it will get better, and it's just to get a better understanding of what having served in the military does.
Can I ask a question, Scott? What is the covenant?
The covenant's a pledge. It was done in 2012. Called Armed Forces Covenant. It's basically it's a pledge between the UK government, the people of the United Kingdom, and the Armed Forces, and it's about how they support those who have served. And it's a freeway sort of thing to get them all connected, and it's about making sure that it basically means that nobody should be disadvantaged due to their military service. All right. So if you've served in the military and you have got an issue that has happened whilst you're in the military, then you shouldn't be disadvantaged because of that. And it's simple things like, it's like if you're serving abroad and you had an overseas bank account, then you'd no credit history in UK. So when you came back to UK and you tried to get a mortgage or a credit card or whatever, then you get turned down because you didn't have credit history. So it's a little simple things like that the Armed Forces Covenant's here. And it's even to do with healthcare. If you've been injured due to your service, then what happens is you get priority treatment in the UK for that injury. So therefore, you don't get it, also it goes to clinical needs, but you'll get priority treatment if you've had an issue with a leg or whatever, then you'll get priority treatment for that. So that basically, it never happened before. So the thing is, you shouldn't be advantaged due to military service, but you certainly shouldn't be disadvantaged for
it. Yvonne, have you got anything you want to add there? Like, what could we be doing different? What could we be doing better?
I think that things have gotten a lot better, and there is always room for improvement in everything. I've seen a difference over the last 20 years, that there's a lot more out there. There's a lot more focus. There's a lot more veterans kind of concerns where it's there's specific set of needs. Even organisations such as, but it's a veteran-led thing, like the Veterans Breakfast Clubs. That's something that veterans started themselves, where it was let's get together and let's have breakfast and a coffee, an egg banjo and a cup of coffee with a few like-minded people. And that has spiraled and spiraled and spiraled, where the level of support, where it's for instance, I've known people that have went to breakfast clubs and they've been introduced to Erskine. They'll know Scott. Scott actually linked in with me about a new venue for a breakfast club. It's a very kind of, a way of sharing information, a way to share stuff, and it's a completely separate organisation from any charities or etc. Things have gotten. There's a lot more out there now, but there's always room for improvement. There's always room for more.
Iain, sorry, Scott, on you go.
I was going to say, I think one of the important things to remember is that within the veterans community, especially within the support organisations, we all sort of work together. We've all got our own specialisms in what we do about housing, benefits, criminal justice, mental health, whatever it is. But what happens is once you get linked into one of them, you link into them all, because you all signpost each other. So, and when you build a relationship up with a veteran, if you identify there may be an issue here, then you'll automatically signpost them or link them into the most relevant service for that help and support. But one of the things is about what we can do better. A big perception of veterans is that they're mad, bad, or sad, and that's in fact, it's research been done that, and part of the problem is that if that's what's published in media and things like that, then that's what people will believe. And how many times do you see in the paper or the headline, ex-soldier jailed for, ex-soldier, sentenced to for this crime? You don't see ex-bus driver, jailed for this offence, or taxi driver jailed. You know what I mean? It's when they automatically bring on that, take on that veteran identity and use that as a headline, and that reiterates the fact that people think that they're mad, bad, or mad, sad, or bad.
Mm-hmm. Iain, anything that you think, in terms of your experience, could have been done differently that might have helped your situation?
What, when I was serving?
Just is there anything that could have been done that might have prevented you from ending up in the criminal justice system?
Mostly myself, and having the lack of discipline that I shouldn't have had for myself. You know what I mean? But we went through morals and standards when you're in the military, like courage, discipline, respect for others, all that kind of stuff, the sea drills. And I let myself down mostly cause of my discipline. But maybe if I found better people to talk to, I tried, but I didn't know where to go. I didn't know, so maybe just somebody to listen to and talk to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, somebody that if I found the right person to, maybe that. But that's just an excuse, But I don't. Who knows? I'm here now.
Yeah, well, the hope is obviously that there might be someone out there who is listening to this who has not asked for support, has not actually kind of reached out for that help. So the hope would be that people who are currently listening to this, who are experiencing difficulties and challenges in their life, are able to reach out for support. And certainly before we finish, we'll make sure that Scott and Evonne get the opportunity to fly in their web links and their social media links. Question from Greg Gable on YouTube. What would you define as a veteran, and why are people not willing to call themselves veterans? Scott?
Oh, as I said earlier, a veteran is someone who's served in the UK military for one day, and that's different from a veteran. As I said, it's a strange sort of identity to have, because some people see themselves as ex-army, ex-navy, rather than veterans. As I said, a lot of people think veterans are the Second World War sort of heroes that stormed the beaches and things like that. But I think the way I see it is anybody who's made that decision to join the military has done that sort of conscious decision, and whether they've done a few weeks and then get injured during basic training and then get medically discharged, or whether they've done a full 22-year career, they're still a veteran and they still get the same support and as they would do no matter how long they've served. And I think that causes an issue within the veterans community as well, because of that definition of one day's service. Because if someone's done 22 years and done tours of Northern Ireland, Afghanistan, whatever it might be, and they see someone who's only done a few weeks in basic training and seen them getting the same support, that causes its own issue within that veterans community.
Evonne, have you got anything you want to add there?
Scott's said exactly the same thing I would say, so yeah.
Okay. Question, or actually more of a statement from Gordon Thompson on Vimeo. Are you aware of a personal development program that Venture Trust delivers called Positive Futures Program?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So, I take it Gordon Thompson is basically saying that's a good program.
Yeah.
Is it veteran specific?
We do have Venture Trust have a number of different projects, but they have that one which is specifically aimed at veterans.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've had some referrals through Venture Trust and vice versa. They're very, very positive. It says it in the name. With good experiences. One of our members in particular, the turnaround in his life from coming from Venture Trust onto ourselves has been phenomenal. So good. It's like Scott said, we all link in together, you know.
And I've got Greg on Vimeo asking what happened to the Scottish Government Directory of Interventions. People don't always know where to go for support. Anyone want to come in on that?
I don't know about that particular topic he's talking about, but within in Scotland, you've got Veterans Scotland, who are the sort of umbrella organisation for veterans support services in Scotland, and they run their own support website called Veterans Assist, and people can go to that and they can search for whatever help they need, and they can get the direct links for that. And that's a Veterans Assist is a Scottish specific one, but you've got Veterans Gateway, which is UK. So there is websites there that give you the full contact details for all support agencies who deal with veterans.
Stephen Reynolds on Facebook asking, what do the panel think is the most effective type of sentencing? Should we be looking more at community sentences as an alternative to custody? I suppose, Laura, that's your area of expertise.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Yeah, it's there is a presumption against short sentences, as we know, which is that we would look to impose, our sentencers would look to impose community sentences, and custody is for those at risk of serious harm. So I think for me, we cannot take the risk element out of it, and those individuals, for whatever reason, that pose a risk of serious harm and there's public protection issues, then those individuals will end up serving sentences within custody. I think where possible, community sentencing is a viable option, and we need to have the investment that the government are looking to invest, especially through COVID. We're looking to invest additional monies to support community sentencing within Scotland.
And also to clarify for people who don't have an understanding of what community sentencing is, it doesn't replace short-term prison sentences. So basically, if a sheriff decides that somebody should go to prison, then obviously they have the power to do so. But I suppose in some respects, it just gives the sheriff another tool in their toolbox when it comes to dealing with individuals in whatever way they feel is most appropriate based on that specific case. So community payback orders does not replace short-term prison sentences. It's just an alternative. Is that the case, Laura?
Absolutely, yep. It's how best the sheriff or the judge sees fit as to how they will sentence. So in West Dunbartonshire, they'll have the options for CPOs with supervision, unpaid work, drug treatment and testing orders. So that's around, not as an alternative because of the risk and the severity of the crime, of the offence merits, then the sentencers would sentence to a custodial period of time.
I think in terms of the volume of questions that have been coming in from social media, which is fabulous, I think I'm almost there in terms of covering as much of them as I was able, because I struggle to read and talk at the same time. So I apologise to anyone if I didn't manage to get to your question. I suppose before we finish today, it kind of feels like it would be appropriate to give each of you just to kind of finish things off by saying whatever you feel that you want to say to the audience that's listening. Laura, I think we'll probably just do it the way we introed at the start. If we start off with yourself.
Yeah, I would just like to leave it with the fact that this has been a really positive experience for Western Bartonshire Justice staff, service users, participants of the workshop. I think, as I mentioned earlier, the ethos of that an offender is not the sum total of their crime. There is so much more to the individual, and it's important that the support is out there, that they get access to it. So I think I would just like to say thank you to Iain in particular for coming on today, because I know how nerve-wracking it is, but also to his other participants in providing what's been a really, really positive experience, and also to yourself at StreetCones, Mark.
Thanks, Laura. And then I think we had Evonne, didn't we?
Yep. Thanks for asking me to do this. It's been really it's been interesting. It's been good to be involved with so many different people in the panel, and all the questions were great. Thanks very much for everybody. Iain, it was good. It's actually good to meet you on a virtual platform. But it's really just that there is help out there. There is services out there. Please use them, and there's a lot of good people out there wanting to help folk, and I'm happy to field any calls if anybody's interested in coming along to our centre. We're here, And
have you got any kind of website or social media?
There's the Erskine Facebook site. It's Erskine Veterans Charity, but also if you put in Erskine Hospital into Google, you will find Erskine. I think it's www.erskine.org.uk, and the information for the Reid McEwen is on there. Just scroll down, you'll find us.
Thanks, Evonne. Scott?
Yeah, also this whole project's been about veterans of criminal justice, which is what we do on a day-to-day basis and how we support them. And it's been great to be part of it and to watch actually the full sort of show and the full video when it was done and give feedback. One of the biggest things I want to say is that there's loads and loads of help and support out there for veterans, no matter what your issues are. What I would suggest, the hardest thing is actually putting your hand up and asking for help. So if you've got an issue, you've got a problem, put your hand up, ask somebody, go to the Veterans Assist website, give Erskine a shout, give me a shout, and we'll point you in the direction. If you've got an issue that's got to put you in touch with criminal justice, then try and get help with that issue before it then becomes a big problem and you end up going through the court system. Because then it's very difficult to get away from that criminal record. So just biggest thing is, if you've got an issue, any concerns, put your hand up, ask for help. I know it's the hardest thing to do, but put your hand up, ask for it, and you'll get it.
Thanks, Scott. Iain, is there anything you want to kind of finish off by saying?
Yeah, thanks for listening to my story as well. Thanks for having me on your show. Well, not show, how would you call this? I don't know.
Hey,
I'll call
it a show. I'll call it a show.
If you've ever gone through a bad time, as you said, Scott's there. You know what I mean? All them services, Evonne, Laura, they're there to help. Maybe one bad case from mine. There's tons of hundreds of thousands of good cases that can be helped. Please don't sit back and don't think there's no help, because there's help there. You know what I mean? As you know, if I'm listening in from Evonne, Laura, Scott, and Mark, please just pick up a phone or something. Don't ever feel like you couldn't do that, because there's always people there that will help and speak to you. And thanks for listening in.
Thanks, Iain. Yeah, I mean, from StreetCones' point of view, I don't think it would be the case, but if for whatever reason anyone was struggling to get access to support via wherever, you can find out more information about StreetCones on streetcones.org. There's also a contact page. If you contact us, we will forward your message to the appropriate organisation. We have built a kind of back catalogue of these types of streams. Some of them are, short films followed by panel Q&As around about different themes. Some of them are one-to-ones. My colleague Adam Robertson's been doing some great kind of one-to-one conversations with people who have inspiring stories of their experiences with the criminal justice system. So anyone who's interested in looking at our back catalogue of streams can do so on vimeo.com/StreetCones. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter @StreetCones. Other than that, thanks to the facilitators of the group, Hannah, Wright and Neil Leaper, all the participants who took part in the 12-week module, Laura Smith and Ruth Price at Western Bartonshire Justice, and all the case managers and social workers, Scott and Evonne, for being so generous with their time. And Iain, you've been fabulous and very brave and selfless to do this today. So on behalf of everyone, lots of gratitude to yourself. And I think that's us. So thanks to the internet for checking us out and for asking so many fabulous questions. And we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
1, 2, 3. I never want my children to live a life like mine, so I faced my inner demons, one small step at a time, one small step at a time. I was a boy without belonging, a jigsaw piece that didn't fit. If someone shouted out the answer, then you know I didn't hear it. You know I didn't hear it. I'm not the man I used to be. Gone are the days when all I could see was myself in the mirror, trying to break free, trying to break free. It's taken many years of feeling all alone, so many years of emptiness with no place to call a home, no place to call a home. Now I'm feeling so much stronger as my demons walked away. I think they finally realized they had nothing more to say, nothing more to say. I'm not the man I used to be. Gone are the days when all I could see was myself in the mirror, trying to break free, trying to break free. So many days have passed now, and my life is still on track. And if them demons try returning, I'll have the strength to send them back. I'll have the strength to send them back. They'll never pull me down again or ever cause me pain. I can see a brighter future and it's heading in my way. It's growing brighter every day. I'm not the man I used to be. I'm not the man I used to be. Oh, I'm not the man I used to be. Gone are the days when all I could see was myself in the mirror, trying to break free, but now I've broken free.
Pure and right, sliding like an ice cube on a silver tray, growing ever smaller in the sunlight of the day. substance, formless and all broken, as my feelings slip away, as my feelings slip away, pure and right, floating in a vacuum, feeling out of place, reflection in the mirror, I don't know my face, forming my existence, redefining place and time, calming stormy waters, with the tide